Hey everybody, welcome back to the Quest for the Bestest. It's the podcast from Backlot Banter where we review every single Palme d'Or winner. That's right, we're back on our regularly scheduled show, talking about every single winner from the Cannes Film Festival. A little more international fare, a little more art house fare. Today, we're going back to the very first year ever of the Cannes ceremony and talking about the entry from one country that I know quite well, which would be the United Soviet Socialist Republic, USSR, 1946. This film is called The Turning Point, directed by Fridrikh Ermler. This is an interesting movie. I'm very much looking forward to talking about it. I myself, gonna play my hand right here, studied way too much about Soviet film in college, and so you're gonna just have to make me shut up at some points during this review. But we'll get to that when we get to it. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to hear what you guys had thought of the film and to dole out a little bit of education and knowledge about the context that it exists within. But first, let me remind you what we did last time, because we talked very fun Oscars wrap-up special, talked about One Battle After Another as a winner, and I have the votes tabulated. My compatriots here, my comrades, shall I say,
Very good.
did the tabulations of the vote, and we found out that
Is that cultural appropriation?
No, because
Just
it
checking.
desires to be spread across the world. So
Oh wait, yeah, so it's actually awesome. Yeah.
The Godfather versus One Battle After Another. Audience voted and decided to keep it as we had it. We were all stuck, but we were like, well, let's just put it on the list as Godfather above One Battle After Another. And that's how y'all decided. So Godfather at spot number 5 on our list of 100 Best Picture winners. One Battle After Another on spot number 6 of 100 Best Picture winners.
Splitting up the Godfather film.
I know. A little sacrilegious,
threading-
maybe, but
Threading that needle.
hey.
Narrow way through.
It is what it is. I'm also going to remind you very quickly of the last Palme d'Or film we talked about, because that was many months ago.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a good film.
Oh,
I want to
yeah.
recall that didn't really get any love at the Academy, but it was just an accident. Jafar Panahi from Iran.
Yeah.
That one had an 8.1 and is at spot number 23 on our list of, let me see, about 65 films. Today will be our 66th Palme d'Or winner. And so quickly, so we can get right into it and we can turn the front of this episode around. Abram, please bring me a report. I'm the general here, and you're my lieutenant. I need a
Whoa.
report in the field. What do the sub commanders have to say? AKA our commenters.
I got 2 comments for us this week. So we've gotten a lot of comments recently between the poll, between the episodes, etc. But actually, I want to go back to our review of Barton Fink. And
Whoa.
we're going...
More like Fart and Stink.
Fart and Stink. Yep, there you
well
go.
done. Thank
The
you.
A movie that I
number-
like, and I
The film right above, it was just an accident, by the way.
Oh, hey, how about
Oh,
that?
there we go. This again comes from Jay Galindo 46. Everyone else needs to start writing better comments if they want to get this spot back. But Jay Galindo said the following: "This might be my favorite Quest episode ever. I love the Coen Bros and I love this movie. I feel very similarly to Tanner about it. I love how Abram cooked with his reading of the ending despite not vibing with the movie, and how you guys kept exchanging punches with him. The whole discussion kept getting more and more interesting. It's always great to see people disagreeing respectfully. 3 thumbs up. Again, no clarification.
Well, no.
We
but
did get clarification.
We did.
We did get clarification. Yeah.
else?
Hang on, I gotta find it. I'll find
I think it was the One Battle.
I think it was
Oscars
the
thing,
One
right?
Battle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but I
As
can
you-
find it here.
4 is
as
too
you
many,
look for it.
2 is too
Yeah.
few,
Mhm.
3 is just right, and as a gentleman must, Jay Galindo is keeping it secret who their favorite is, and you know what?
That's right.
That pleases me just fine. I don't want to know.
What I was going to say is we actually got the 4 thumbs up here because we had a single thumbs up from BS Ball Time, who said, I just wanted to say you guys make great content. Been watching for a while and don't know why I'm subscribing just now, but you got yourself another subscriber. Keep up the awesome videos. Thumbs up.
If
BS
no one's
Ball
chasing
Time.
you, you can speak a little bit slower. It's gonna be fine.
All right, man.
I am timing him though, by the way, just so everyone knows. I'm timing him on all these.
BS Ball Time. This is how we find out if you're a real fan or if you're just passing through. Are you watching the review of The Turning Point? If you are, let us know in the comments.
Is
Are you
BS
a
Ball Time
real
in the
head?
room with us right now?
Timo did summarize Jay Galindo's comment, but I'll read it verbatim here a moment. At the very bottom of it, he says, And not that it matters, but I always put 3 emojis because 1 feels like not enough, 2 doesn't feel right, and 4 is too many. You're all great. I do have a favorite, though. I'm a gentleman, and I would never say it.
That is so interesting.
I love it.
That's great.
I love it.
Jay Galindo, could you reveal it at the end of Palme d'Or?
Whoa.
Make it a big reveal, a big
Ooh.
celebration to end the show.
Wow.
As if we need more
Something to
motivation to
consider.
keep going forward
Well,
on this
there's
great
also a question:
endeavor.
is Jay Galindo a real head in watching this video? How
That's
many
true.
real heads are out there amongst
That's
the
so true.
VOD fans?
And then the whole whatever next season of Quest is after Palme d'Or, they get to wear a crown.
Crown.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Whole show.
Okay. Tanner,
Or maybe
right
another
now,
window. Like Timo can put like a little PNG crown.
Oh,
on
yeah,
it.
that's
I'll
good.
just After Effects camera track it to your head the entire time.
Oh
Now,
my God,
that
that'd
won't
be-
take forever to edit for sure. Tanner, do us a favor.
Yes.
What is like the plot of this here Soviet Russian
Okay.
World War II movie?
Okay, Timo. Okay. All right, pal. All right. You want to know the fucking plot of this thing? Okay.
If
So this
you
takes
wouldn't mind.
place in 1942, if I'm getting my history correct.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, no, during the Battle of Stalingrad, the days and weeks leading up to it, most importantly, as we follow a general. Is he a general? I'm not really clear on the exact classifications of people here, but
Whatever we
a
say is how
general-
it is. I think.
a General Kirill Oh boy, Muravyov.
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 It's got
Yeah.
2 V's.
Kirill Muravyov, who is being brought in to manage the front, the German front assaulting the unnamed city of Stalingrad, because it was sort of like a placeholder name, as I understand, for this area, for this city, which of course became historic as he sort of holds off on presenting the reserve soldiers for this assault that they're trying to stave off
Thwart.
from
Yeah.
the Germans.
Mhm.
And everyone around him's like, Muravyov, what are you doing, man? Just release the reserves. Like, what are you doing? We're gonna get killed out there. And he's like,
Hashtag release the reserves.
hold. And he uses basically the whole movie is Muravyov convening with his superiors and his sort of under generals and things like that, strategizing the front and everything, while also sort of leading into the final German assault on Stalingrad just before winter comes. And it will be a turning point not only for World War II and the Russian battle against the Germans, but also the world is watching Stalingrad. Will they be able to stave off the Germans? Or, will the USSR fall, and will their allies consume them as well?
That seems to be what happens. And spoiler alert: the Soviets won World War II.
Whoa, hey, but how about that?
How about that? So, Tucker, I want to hear from you, and then I'll hop in, and then we'll have some of these other fellas talk about what they thought. But your reaction to this film right off the bat?
I think that this is the driest war movie I've ever watched. It is so detached, not only from the war front that we get fleeting examples of, and fleeting moments actually set in, but even from its own characters. I think that what frustrates me so much about The Turning Point is that I think there is a unique perspective on war being attempted here. This is much more about the pressure that is placed on the higher-ups in military command and the stresses that making massive decisions and sort of the different thought process between different commanders leads to outcomes and the sort of infighting between them. And I think that is a unique and interesting approach to telling a war story, not necessarily boots on the ground, but the movie it's too plot focused to really feel like our characters are meaningfully growing or engaging. There's all these conversations, but it's so terminology focused and so information focused that I never feel like Muravyov is not a particularly easy name to remember for us Americans, but I also feel like I know very little about this guy as a protagonist. And he has these people that it's friends that he has history with. He treats one like like, I love you like a brother, man. I'm like, I don't fucking know who you are. Like I'm sitting here and I'm just in this stew of military jargon and characters who feel largely interchangeable to me, and I come out the other side thinking that I could be interested in a movie of this type, but this is not the one. I think
Hmm.
that I barely know the characters. I barely know the stakes are so vague because we see so little of the boots on the ground combat. The larger context of the war is barely touched on at all. Not necessarily, it's not necessary given the time period and the place that the movie came out in, but for someone 100 years later, I found it very difficult to really understand the context of why these things were so important. Uh, this is just a complete miss for me. I think that this is one of the weakest, easily weakest World War II films, of which we have reviewed over a dozen
Yeah,
in this
several.
journey.
Yes.
I actually I largely agree with you, Tucker. This is a very strange film, and I'm very puzzled as to why, as to the politics that led it to be a winner at Cannes. But
Mm.
taking a step back, in school and college, I took a class, and I'm going to reference quite a lot today from this book by Peter Kenez, Cinema and Soviet Society, of which this film is not referenced in here.
Hmm.
Ermler's other films are referenced, but this one, just not even in the glossary. That's telling in my mind that this film
Interesting,
actually
yeah.
escapes the canon of what, we can talk about other, well, we don't need to because they're not really related, but like just to sprinkle in the ideas of there are excellent filmmakers working in the industry at this time, like Vertov and Eisenstein,
My
and
boy
Pudovkin.
Ziga.
Yeah, we love these guys. But it's also a 45 movie. The cultural pressures and the changing the cultural revolution like literally, happens kind of before the war, and then the war comes around, you have wartime economy. The distance of which this film is is from us is so immense. There's like an ocean in between the culture and the society that made this movie and promoted this movie and then got it into Cannes and then had the jurors, gave it there. From what we expect from a war movie and from what even we expect from a European World War II movie, it's
Mm.
just really far. And so yeah, we're very disconnected from the front. We're very disconnected from the characters. We're very I mean, we joked before we're rolling, but like that, this is a propaganda movie, and there is very clear objectives of this film in its propagandistic nature to support the ideas and to build this mythology of the Great Patriotic War. Like, we're not during the war when we're making this movie, but we're so close to the end of it, and the memories and the scars are so fresh that now is the time for myth making and for this like rebuilding of the national identity. And this battle real world historically is critically important, is like unfathomably important in the Soviets turning the war around and going from losing really hardcore for years to winning really hardcore for years. It's like right in the middle of it all. And so for me, I find all this like so interesting. I'm so fascinated, but that's because I'm like a scholar at this point. I don't really want to live in the world of the everyday consumer. I don't want to be just like, oh, okay, like these guys talk, and then we have some like German tanks show up, and it's like, oh, and then at the end of the movie, we get the patriotic music blasts, and the tanks go rolling, and we have impressive shots with impressive military details. But it's like, yeah, we know we know that this is possible. We know that filmmakers can do this and have done this and did do it and will continue to do it. And so like yeah, I'm gonna try to stick on the more context and scholarly study and the reasons we can find this movie interesting, as opposed to I don't find this movie interesting because I don't necessarily find like how the movie's made and like what it's about all that interesting,
Hmm.
but what it has to say and what we can learn from it does interest me quite a lot.
Sure, certainly.
Well, Tanner,
Yeah,
Timo, choose your
I'm
next
I can take
gonna
it from
pick
there.
you. You get to go next.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we all have a similar sort of mindset approaching this, and
Everyone
I
hasn't
like
talked yet,
this. That's
so
that's true. I was going to say, barring Abram being like, hail to the
huge
fallen
fan.
republic.
Not gonna happen.
Okay, fair enough. But I do like Abram's headspace, or sorry, Timo's headspace of approaching this film.
Sure.
For my quick cursory thoughts on it, yeah, I mean, this is incredibly technical in its approach to the storytelling surrounding the generals who decided the fate of the USSR during the Battle of Stalingrad. And, historically, I suppose, with my cursory knowledge that is true historically, that, this was like a turning point battle, or would have been rather, if the Russians had lost this. And the film goes through a lot of like talkative pains to tell you that are not exactly graceful in their approach, I would say. It's a
It's like,
lot of
oh my god, it took me just to interrupt here. The fact, like the
you're fine.
geography of how this city is laid out is
Mhm.
so important to how they decide to defend it. And yet, as an American, I never knew. I could never figured out like that the river and the little hill, and
Uh-huh.
it's like this is fucking
It's a
matters.
But
it's
they
a
never
it's
show it. They just
They never show
describe it like 7 times.
it's a very talkative film. Of course, as I'm sure we've all recognized, and that eventually just turns into this movie being a little bit of like a patience test of how many times or how long you can deal with stern, droopy faced Russian actors sort of
Like,
talking about what the
wait,
goal is.
the front commander needs you.
Uh,
Hands
He's
over
like,
the phone.
okay, I guess I have to go to a different. I suppose I have to go to a different stone room now. So here off I go. So it is that. It's a little bit of an endurance test on that front. But I think there is interesting historical material in here nonetheless that is partially dealt out by this film in terms of like just talking at you, just like regurgitating historical text basically, but like in the moment. And also this film existing as a contemporary propaganda film for 1945.
Yeah.
Abram, what do you think?
Unleash the beast.
Yeah, I mean, I just, if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't really have anything to say about this movie. If
Fair
I'm being
enough.
perfectly honest,
Yeah.
I think that there is just a degree to where some films that win for all of these many reasons we're talking about, that are also so early on in the canon, are just really not that compatible with what we do on this show. And so
Mhm.
I'm very interested to talk about it sort of from Juno's perspective, but I don't actually think there's like that much revelatory for us to dig into here, just because is this film failing by not showing some of this stuff? Maybe, but also we're viewing it from a context within which a lot that's sort of taken as obvious or a given isn't to us.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and so I think that puts us in an odd position 80 years later of looking at this and saying, this is just so of its time that what am I really going to sit here and say this is an awful movie? I don't think so. I just think that it
Mhm.
is largely impenetrable and largely not interesting, and it
Kenez
exists.
would
Yeah.
argue it is an awful movie.
Okay, well there we go.
Interesting.
And I'd be
Well,
interested to hear that. But for me, it's
yeah.
just like I don't really have anything on this one. I think that there is some interesting stuff. Like in the last 20 minutes of the film is somewhat
Yeah, sure.
interesting. Waiting for the German
Yeah.
artillery shelling. Like there are moments I think that cultivate some good tension, but otherwise, it's just I don't know, man. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Mhm.
Yeah, in the canon 1946 World War II movies, of which we have built a canon here in
Mhm.
this program, certainly at the bottom.
Yeah, sure, fair enough. Timo, to get us kicked off here a
hmm
moment, one thing that occurred to me is just that, like, while I was watching and watching how this film doles out its information about the day to day, the like decision making, the steps in thought process that these Russian generals had to go through, and the ways that it, as I said before, sort of ungracefully tells you like how important this battle was. Is this because the Russian front of World War II was sort of a black box of information for the rest of the world for a long time? Like, in the Russian delegation, if you want to call them that, sort of sending this film to the first Cannes Film Festival in 1946. Was this them? Everyone was sort of bringing all the European countries certainly were bringing their own sort of World War II stories to that
hmm
festival. Is this Russia being like, all right, guys, here's like the big story that came out of our side of
I
things when this
have
happened?
I kind of I'm gonna hit you with the comprehensive view of like the why of this movie. We think
Yeah.
about our other canon here that Abram brought up, the Roda Anga, like these movies.
Hmm.
Who is centered in them? Who and what story is centered? We have over and over again watched films of what we lovingly call them like local resistance to Nazi occupation.
Certainly. Yep.
This is that, except the occupation has yet to pass. Like it hasn't come yet. And so when we think about like what the purposes of these war films are, it is to valorize and heroic to construct a heroic
Hmm.
image of your national identity being reborn out of the ashes of war. Is like, we are united as a nation because we came together and stood up against the Nazis. If you're Denmark, Dorota Anga style. And in this film, this is the same idea applies, but it is not our bands of resistance fighters, our urban guerrillas. It is our strict, big, gigantic military apparatus that receives secret orders from Central Command, that goes to the field, and they got the drivers, and this whole big apparatus, the military apparatus, is the thing that is to be shown off in this film. And that, yes, they go back and forth and they struggle and different people have ideas, but that ultimately it's the strong-willed, positive, heroic man who can lead through this incredible period of adversity and demand of others sacrifice, that, because we're telling this in hindsight, that we know is gonna pay off. And so for me, this film is very much like showing off what the Soviets did in World War II to the rest of Europe, like showing off that this sacrifice, this idea that we're gonna fight to the last house, that we're not gonna fight, that we've learned of the Germans' secret plans and we're going to stop them every inch of the way. We're going to turn their minutes into hours and their days into weeks and ruin their plans of moving quickly. And this is so very different from what the what the Italian filmmakers are doing, what the fascist Italian filmmakers, what the fascist German filmmakers are doing, and then what the independent filmmakers in Western occupied Europe are doing. Like, those are fundamentally, like, the goals of these stories are just so very different. And so that's like my big wide angle, and that then of course informs why everything is how it is, because it's, well, the individual is not quite so important, versus the command structure and the guys fighting back and forth. Yeah, I do want to bring up, though, this kind of important little bit of Soviet film history, because we're in a period here in which if we go, the Bolsheviks, 1917, right? They take power. You have a restructuring of Soviet society during Lenin's rule during the new economic period in the 1920s. That is when the industry booms, and when our director Ermler begins to make lots of films. But he is not a director, and this is all stuff I kind of didn't. I reread this in this book. I forgot this from this class. But like, Ermler was a popular director, and he wasn't really interested in being like Vertov and Einstein to go make crazy movies that are like Marxism in film. But rather, he's like, I want to make a movie that a lot of people watch. And so he never really got high marks on the artistic scale, but he did get high marks on the producing films for wide audiences and mass appeal, of which it's like distribution and like the whole thing is so different than how it works in America. The Soviets were like, we need 3,500 dudes with projectors to go out and play movies in all the little villages across the entire nation. And then they were like, all right, here's a bunch of money, go do that. But in the lead up to World War II, my point that I'm slowly arriving towards is that film production drops off a cliff because of social repression and Stalinist governance. 1945, there are 18 movies made. From 1941 through 1945, there are 17 movies made, or 70 movies made in the whole country. And this is a gigantic nation. Remember, like, they were huge before World War I. So that's not very many films. The Nazis made like 1,300 in that time period, of which most of them had nothing to do with the war. They were interested in purely entertainment fare and escapist stuff. Whereas the Soviets were like, nah, we're showing what it's like in real life, and then they just write up a fictional story for what real life really is. But by 1951, so only 6 years after this movie is made, the Soviets made 9 movies all year long. That is like so few, and the reason is that you had to get the stamp of approval from Stalin himself, and that was really hard to get. And so,
he was a chill guy, though, right?
Yeah,
pretty normal guy.
He reacted very sane and very normal when he didn't like what you were doing.
Right.
So, long-winded to say, the room for experimentation, the room for taking a line that isn't, we fought the hardest, we struggled the most, we are the most deserving of winning, is like unacceptable. You can't put that in the movie, and especially a movie that's going to be about the biggest battle of the war.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of the tenets that you just sort of laid out with how a military story in film was to be told is sort of beat for beat in almost every scene of the turning point. No, and at a certain point, and maybe we can start here, unless we want to do more historical context immediately. We can talk about like what I try. My notes really come in two sections. Where the first 20 minutes of the movie, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to write down like things that characters are doing, which are not usually notes that I take. I'm usually like is usually like thoughts that occur to me, and like themes that are jumping out or like moments that I like. But I'm like, this seems like the kind of movie where I'm going to have to remind myself which character said this or did this action in the story. Which that's like the first half of my notes, and then the second half is when I settled into the story a bit more. I was like, okay, like I think this line is interesting, or this moment between two characters is maybe something. I think there are things like that in this movie that maybe speak to Ermler's populist filmmaking background a little bit, Timo. Where like he
It's called socialist realism is the
okay, sure.
doctrinal name of the filmmaking style that was accepted and the only one that you could really
Yeah.
make in post 1937 or something like that.
Because for as much as, in a sort of very loose, maybe even far too simplified view of like the turning point needs to be about, the Soviet troops coming together and beating the Nazis or whatever. And we need to show that they were a united front across the board, no disagreements, none of that. And I think that is broadly true, but I think there are moments that speak to a little bit of characterization and individuality within the military general characters, and even some things that make um how are we saying his name? Sorry,
Muravyov.
Muravyov.
Moravia.
Thank you,
Yo.
Muravyov, a little bit cavalier in his leadership style, a little bit of a rapscallion, if I can use that word, in how he behaves and how he talks to other generals, whether they be superiors or underlings to him. I think that's what really jumped out to me is that they sort of depicted this fictional character. Muravyov was not actually the leader of the Soviet front during the Battle of Stalingrad. That was Timo Zhukov, General Zhukov, I believe.
Probably it was that guy.
Yeah.
He's played by Jason Alexander in The Death of Stalin, and he has
Oh,
the
okay. He's
huge
all the
in which
medals,
this
all the yeah.
they apparently had to tone down the medals in the movie because the
Okay.
real life amount was simply too much.
Oh, sure. In the Death of Stalin, you're talking about.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, in this, he is sort of like he really has like his own attitude about things, which is something that we might see a little bit more in like a modern Western film, and not like a Western like cowboys, but like like a Western American film or European film maybe, where like this guy's kind of a hotshot. He kind of has his own way to go about things, and all the people around him are like, "Bro, what are you doing? You're making the wrong call." And he's like, "Up, up, up, up. Check this out." And they're like, "Holy shit, he's a fucking genius. He's a military genius." Like
Pulls some
I didn't
papers out
expect.
from his jacket and like read
Yeah,
this and weep.
yeah. I didn't expect that type of storytelling to be in here, but I think it is something that speaks to how that kind of populism, not to take away from the academic term that you used, but like
Hmm.
populism and how you're just literally like speaking to an audience being like, "Oh, I like this guy. They shouldn't underestimate this guy because he is our protagonist." Like that is everywhere in all sorts of film, but I guess I maybe didn't super expect that here and was surprised to see it happening.
There.
I
Go ahead, Tucker. I talk too much
Well,
already.
I think it's interesting to bring that up, and I think about like, yeah, I guess you're right, but I found that difficult to parse. Like
Fair enough.
there
Yeah.
would be these moments, but his performance is very muted, as is
Yeah.
frankly almost everyone
A, Ru-
in the movie.
a
Yes.
non-expressive Russian performance? Are you kidding me?
Uh,
Hold on a
but
second. Stop the presses.
but with these, there are these moments of characterization that I appreciate, but they mostly come in the very few non-militaristic sequences, the ones that are
Hmm.
more two guys in a room. It's a guy who's known for a long time. It's
Yeah.
a guy who's his boss or a someone that he's been friends with or his driver, and we get these like one-on-one moments where I'm like, okay, this is a guy and he has a personality, but these moments that you're talking about, where I was obviously very easy to parse like strategic moments of talent and victory in a movie like F1 that we reviewed recently. That's part of the reason I enjoyed that movie so much. I think that this movie it's so visually samey, from the set design to the lighting to the actors to their costuming, that I can't really tell when a major decision has been made, because I'm like, well, they've been sitting in a room like this on phones and pointing at maps for the entire runtime of the movie. And so I'm almost like shocked when it progresses and we finally cut back to like a war front and there's like guys being bombed. And I'm like, oh, that's right. That's what this actually means. But then oftentimes these warfront moments that were shown don't feel like they actually reflect a major decision that was made. They're just like kind of these interstitial guys being impacted, and like it's so this movie, I think, tries to, you're right, gas up these decisions being made and the process of making them and the pressure that goes into one person having to make a major decision like this. And will it pan out? We don't know quite yet. We got to wait by the phone to hear the call that came in. But because it is so limited in its scope, I found it very difficult to parse that these decisions were major. I'm like, I know it takes a lot of thought to do this, but then they just kind of execute it. We don't really see it happen, and then the call comes back. It worked or it didn't work, and I'm like, okay, man. Like, I don't know. Like the filmmaking style of this movie, I don't think behooves the populism that you're talking about, of me actually feeling like this guy is radical in his approach, he is talented, or he is emotionally worthy of any kind, because the movie presentationally is just so it's so flat.
Listen, I'm not saying that this is like, guys, what are you talking about? Don't you see this stuff happening? I'm not saying that.
You're right. It's attempting that.
It's attempting something like that, and it's mostly attempting that in the dynamic between actors in these on set. You know, it is. I was expecting, I'll admit, like a little bit more battlefield footage. You know, a little bit more warfare action set piece than we actually get. There's not even like a boots on the ground soldier that's really a primary character. Maybe that old man that we see dying at the very end.
Yes, I think that this is actually rather important to the movie, that we don't really focus in on the boots on the ground soldiers. But yeah, it's probably filmed in St. Petersburg, in studios. They did, you know, during the war, they filmed all the movies in Central Asia. They moved they boxed up all the studio equipment and they shipped it on the trains, which, like, because, you know, St. Petersburg, Leningrad was under siege for years during the war. So they weren't making movies there. They weren't making movies in Moscow. But Central Asia, it doesn't really snow, and it's like snowing all the time in St. Petersburg. So they had trouble matching the two locations.
That's fair enough.
I mean, I think part of why this film is sort of difficult for me to really have much to say on is because it's very interested in hitting a couple key tenets over and over again about the duty that these men have to not give up a single building,
right?
The positions they hold, or sort of these platitudes, more propagandistic line reaffirmations about good leadership and generals making opportunities. And so I think that while I would agree with you, Tanner, that at the beginning of the film, I'm like, I don't even really know what the hell is going on here. I think it becomes, from my view, pretty clear pretty quickly that there's actually less going on than it might seem.
And less than meets the eye.
Yes, and maybe more what we have is a series of opportunities to reaffirm these virtues, and then we ultimately have a moment to see them play out effectively. And I think that it's not a coincidence that's when the film is most effective.
Socialist realism is all about, baby.
There we go.
That is what it's all about. You got to set up the tenets, and I think in this one, the things I pick up on are like the sacrifice. We have noted many of the small time side characters who are much lower in command than our main Muravyov and
Muravyov
and Krivenko.
Yes.
The other has like the driver who ostensibly dies while holding the telephone wires together with his mouth.
No, that's well. First, I think that's a different
No,
guy than the driver.
that's Minute. That's my guy,
Yeah.
Minute.
Minutka.
Yes,
my boy Minutka.
Minutka, yeah. But yes, there is yes. I wanted to bring up the guy who dies. I don't know if we get a character name for him because that's fairly early on in the film. But yeah, I mean, like that's a striking moment of imagery and a strong visual idea.
The Soviet filmmakers had learned, the ones that were really trying to go with this like collective as hero, learned that is not a very effective storytelling method. We don't really find that very interesting as just humans and viewers. And so as that style progressed from about 1930s when socialist realism began, actually Ermler has one of the first films that was not, they didn't really know that it was socialist realism at this time, but then he made it and everybody was like, hot damn, that's perfect, copy that.
Yeah.
It's propaganda and it feels great, make more of it. And so this film stands to uphold like the necessary sacrifice that what we, by rubblizing the most important industrial city in this part of the country, we did the right thing. By that Murav, I can't ever. Muravyov. He's got a first name, Kirill, I think.
Kirill, yes.
Kirill Muravyov.
That his choices as this like great man of history to hold back the reserves and to that listen to the guys when need to do and not when they don't have the right idea. That is all in creating like this ideal man of the Soviet Union. For which we should all look up to and find ways to emulate in our own lives. And there's no room in that for that person to be complicated. There's no room for that person to have a romance beyond just like my wife is in the army too. Like my wife is
my wife does army.
My wife does army too, and she died. She sacrificed herself.
Uh-oh.
I sacrificed myself, my family, my life to this is it's really. What are all the different levels of sacrifice that we can have? The individual, the division, the army, the city, the country. And they're really willing to step up through every single ladder in this film. And I mean, that was like I think that's what the myth making is. That's why I'm like, it's myth making. It's not so much interested in the truth of the reality of Stalingrad, because this thing went on for like half a year.
I have the old Wikipedia page pulled up. I was like, Jesus fuck, and that went on for like 9 months. Good lord,
it's like a crazy battle. And so the film ellipses. We get all 9 months in this movie. Could you guys tell? I couldn't tell.
To me, if you really press me and ask me how long of a period this film takes place over, I'll be like, I don't know, like 3-4 weeks maybe.
No, it's long time. And we move around geographically too all the place, and it's just like we can't tell. So
because this movie is not particularly concerned with interstitial progress. It jumps around to what I think it views as the key bullet points to hit, and then it cuts to the next one, and you're like, I don't know, could have been anything in the middle there.
You know what movie I was thinking a lot about while I was watching this?
What are you thinking about, Abram?
House of Dynamite.
The House of Dynamite. Sorry, A House of Dynamite. Excuse me. The Catherine Bigelow film from last year.
Yes, which I think that if you were, it's already up for debate if that movie's even interesting at all. But I think that if you were watching that from a different culture, decades removed, you'd be like, the fuck is this? because when you're watching that film, which for people who don't know, go run to your closest television set and go on Netflix and watch it for yourself. But it's about the decisions in the U.S. government and the conversations being had around those decisions relating to how the U.S. is going to respond to an impending nuclear strike. And the film is largely just various conference rooms of different descriptions and people having very technical conversations, very specific to American values and very specific to American procedures and protocols. And there's a degree to where that movie is interesting to me and this one isn't. And it's partially because of what I intrinsically understand, right? And this is something we run into a lot with Quest films that I think makes Palme d'Or, for me, particularly academically interesting, but sometimes hard to parse when in these movies we watch. Because we are sort of forced to reckon with a number of movies that take for granted facts that their ideal audience member would have to hand. And a lot of American cinema does this too, but we just happen to be
Yeah.
American and we don't consider it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I like a movie like this as an opportunity for Timo to come and help fill some of these gaps I have in my understanding. And it's also why I think I cut it a little bit of slack, just because the number of American movies that tackle a Western perspective in a critical Western moment like this, without giving you all of the pretense and all of the minutiae are vast. There's many, many movies like this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's funny thinking about like this movie and like culture shock almost. There's one element of it that made it feel even more distanced to me. And like confusingly so. Timo having a little bit of more context on the like culture of the military in the USSR, you might be able to answer if this is a real thing that it's
I'm
actually
not gonna.
important. to
I'm
have
not going to
reflected.
speak for the culture of the military of the USSR in 1945.
I don't know. You have
I
more
don't know.
context than we do.
I do, but
Uh,
not much.
but it's the fact that they almost always, I would say 90% of the time, call each other by their full name.
no, they don't,
That's true.
because
the-
it's
it's
the
like
first
first
and the middle, not, and you would
Oh,
maybe
well,
yes,
sure.
yes.
Yeah,
The way, yeah,
but
keep going.
a fuller name
Yes.
than usually we have used in particularly American culture. Timo, is that just how people talk to each other in
Yes,
Russia or in
Russia.
Russian history? Okay.
in Russia, and we should have one of our lovely commenters hit with more detail on this, because surely they'll know more. But like, it is a
Yeah.
formalized system of nicknames, and so names have the set nicknames for varying levels of formality and closeness to the person of which you're calling. So like someone named, this is the only really one that I can pick out at the top of my head, but like someone's named Vladimir. You're gonna call them Vova if you know them much closer. You're gonna meet them and be like, oh, nice to meet you, Vladimirovich, which would be like Vladimir, son of Vladimir.
Yeah.
But then they have a last name, but
Right.
that's the middle. But then once you get to know this person, you'd be calling them Vova, and it just goes on and on. Like every single name has 4 or 5 differing levels of diminutive.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
so it's just a linguistic thing. It's just how the Russian language works.
Yeah.
And I don't exactly know like what the cultural value is, but I'm reading this book, Stalingrad by Vasily Grossman, the prequel to Life and Fate, the much more famous novel. But like this happens all the time in that book. They're always, and everybody has 3 names basically, which makes it really difficult to know who does what, especially when reading like literature or watching a movie, because they get called by different things all the time,
Yeah.
by different people. And they
Yeah.
are talking about the same person, but it's just like, Kirill
Yeah,
or
but that's
Muravyov,
a fascinating culture shock element where I think that that's a significant element of why, for someone as particularly as character focused as I am in my films, I found anyone other than our main character almost impossible to remember.
Well,
The
I
names, they
had
have
that
so many
problem too.
different names. Yeah, no, I'm not saying that you didn't, but like, I also had never heard that about Russian names, and that's I'm not saying this is like a flaw of the writing of the film, but on a viewing from a
That's
viewing
kind of what I'm
perspective,
saying.
the similarity of the locations, the similarity of the roles of the characters, and then the language / culture gap between my understanding of how people refer to one another and greet one another and what I'm presented with in this film made it like this is an intellectually challenging and culturally challenging film to watch for me because it felt like I was like and then again this is a cultural gap thing. If an American were to make a movie where everyone is referring to each other by extended names in almost every situation, that character or that culture would probably be aliens or robots, where it's like people pretending to greet one another. Hello, I am Tucker Hazel. Hello, Timo Nelson. What do you think of this? And that's ingrained in me as an American viewer. And so I watch this movie and I'm seeing these people, obviously they're military, they're being respectful to one another, but they're They're primarily Russian in this scenario, and I feel like they're robots.
Even when
Because
they
it-
break
it-
down and have a more like friendly and less like boss underling kind of conversation, I'm thinking between Kivrenko and Muravyov, like they know each other from a long way back, and like yes, they'll exclaim like uh whatever, Kirill Shostakovich, like you've got to do something, and it's just you're right. It has that effect on me too. And I don't think the writing of the movie, nor the acting, nor the costumes help us remember who any of the
Yeah.
side characters are.
Well,
Yeah.
yes.
Um,
It mostly
this is like a
comes
problem
down
in
to
Dostoevsky too. It's like it's hard to remember who these characters are. They all have 3 names.
Sure.
It's like that's not how we do it over here.
yeah. But if for me again, I sort of broke down how my notes were sort of laid out. The first half helping me to remember who these characters were. The second half ultimately does help a little bit that they do address each other for with the first first and middle name every time they're talking to one another. Because if I had any issue with remembering who was who, they helped remind me. I was like, oh yeah, this guy is Krivienko, and Krivienko. He's kind of like the main doubter of Muravyov,
Which we would call the negative hero in this film, because you can't really have an antagonist because it's the Germans. So the Germans are
Right.
are evil, but you
Well, and we
need
do
drama. So you got to have the
we do
positive and the
see the
negative hero.
Germans a number of times in this film. We can talk about that. But yeah, if we're talking about Krivienko as the negative hero of the story, yeah, he's the main doubter of Muravyov. He enters the story basically when they both of them arrive, or Muravyov arrives at the actual front itself, and in a lot of scenes is basically just doubting every single call Muravyov makes, particularly again around this idea of engaging the reserve units, the reserve Soviet soldiers. And he's like, listen, we're getting killed out there, and they're just gonna keep whittling away at our guys unless we like give them a strong pushback. And Muravyov has this very ethereal, take it as it comes sort of approach, where like he has a big idea of like there will be a time, very soon, where it will become imperative and useful and helpful for us to hold off on them until that very moment. But until that moment arrives, screw you, Krivienko. We're not going to do that. And there even comes a time where he dismisses Krivienko from his duty as a general. He basically demotes him.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote down the line here where Krivienko, this happens, and he basically gives Krivienko's position to an older general who is much more supportive of his idea to basically engage in a little bit of urban warfare. Let the Germans come into the city because it'll be easier to defend them.
Because these humongous German tanks can't turn very quickly, and you can shoot at them from every side. In that instance,
there's even a little shot across the bow at the French there. When he's like, the fucking French, they're idiots. They should have fought the Germans in Paris. They shouldn't have given up Paris because the tanks can't maneuver in Paris. Anyway. But Krivienko in this moment,
shit like that is what the movie is largely interested in.
Sure, yeah. Krivienko asks, "Are you asking me? Sorry, you're not asking me. Are you demoting me because I am a general who is not carrying out the task that you asked of him?" But Muravyov basically comes back with, "No, I'm demoting you because you're a man who I know if a certain task comes up, you won't be able to accomplish it." And I was like, okay, so this is like some shifting power dynamics here. But then just one scene later, there's a moment where he learns that Krivienko was injured in battle, and like decides to like give him a commendation or like decorate him with an award. And like they remain close after that. Like he doesn't become they
were
grow
close
to understand
beforehand,
each other out of this moment. Yeah,
and they remain close afterwards. But it is a little
and
like
he eventually gets his position back in like what's kind of like a triumphant moment. He's like, "All right, pal, the final push is coming on Stalingrad. You're back in the books. You're back in the good graces.
Get back in there, champ."
Yeah.
It's very much like Poe Dameron and Admiral Holdo in The Last Jedi.
Oh, I can see that for sure. Yeah.
Here's another movie I was thinking about. I'm just thinking about movies. 'Cause I'm like,
He's
there's
thinking
nothing
about
in this
movies.
movie I'm going to think about really. I was thinking about Mrs.
Yeah.
Miniver, which we reviewed on an older version of Quest,
Yes.
which is
Mhm.
another World War II film, but this from an American perspective, and it was American propaganda.
British perspective.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Miniver
it's
is
all the
British,
same.
yeah.
You're fine. Yeah, you're fine.
It's pretty much the same. The
American
Soviets would be
adjacent.
like, it's the fucking same.
Yeah, for as much as we sort of jape and jab about the Brits and everything, it's quite simple.
This is actually useful for my point because even though that movie is so far in the past that I barely don't even remember what country it's from, it does
Right.
nonetheless have very strong imagery, like of the bombed out church, and it's on the sort of power of the images that there's sort of this animating feeling about joining the war. And it's interesting. I don't really feel like this film has that. I don't really think that there is the one image of the man with the wire in his teeth, which we hang on for a while, that is animating. But I don't really feel like this is a film of images, and I think that that's also sort of something that was difficult for me to grapple with. What the animating propagandistic ideas are in
It's such a
the text of the
travesty.
film.
It's such a travesty that this is not a film of images because like the other guys in this sphere that were all working together, that were like working at Len Film together, like
Hey, you know who? Yeah, Sergei Eisenstein, a good image guy.
an image guy. Like he didn't give a fuck about dialogue. He was like images. So yeah, I think that's just like it's just emblematic of where this industry is going in history. Like it's going in the tank, it's going in the tubes, and the only thing that can get it out of that is Stalin croaking and Khrushchev giving the secret speech, and then they can make new movies.
The 1945 equivalent of a Moana remake. You're just like you watch it and you're like, I don't know, guys, industry's going in the bad direction.
I don't know about this one, Chief. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, what could they? They just had no options, and yet I think like you say, I think if I remember right, Mrs. Miniver is during the war, correct?
Yeah, that movie came out in 1944. I want to no, it was like 40. It was like 42. I think.
Yeah. Well, and so and we
42.
must
Good
remember
call.
that like
Yeah.
Battle of Berlin is in 1944, so the like end of the war that we think of as Americans is the end of the war in the Pacific. Like the European theater was done months earlier. So this film
Yeah,
is
right.
squarely coming out after the Soviets have achieved victory. And the need of that to drive army recruitment is not there. You don't need to like sell war bonds at this point. You need to build this nation back up and reform the identity of everybody through we went through this struggle. And how convincing is it when we're really only learning that through all these generals? Less convincing than like the cranes are flying, which comes later, where it's eyes wateringly beautiful
movie that we're going to talk about on the series, by the way.
I love that one.
I think you're right, and you're talking about when it comes out in relation to the Great Patriotic War, as the Soviets called it, is interesting to me because just alluding to what we just sort of discussed in. Or joked about a little bit with this film sort of taking shots at the French and how they handled the surrender of Paris and stuff like that. Well, it's like this movie also might be serving a function of explaining like why the Germans were allowed to destroy or take as much of Stalingrad or other similar Soviet cities as they were. This was like, no, guys, don't worry. I know that like hundreds of thousands of homes were destroyed in this campaign, but like it was a strategic move that helped us defeat them in the long run.
Yeah, the strategy of the Soviets during the first 2 years of the war, which was lose every battle you get into and run as fast away as possible, really. God, look, I definitely have watched too many YouTube documentaries about the Eastern Front in World War II. But like, man, the reason this is called the turning point is because very squarely in the war, they just lost everything. They had terrible leaders, terrible telephone lines. They had troops who ran away. There's like low-key mentions of this, of like execution, of desertion equals execution in this movie.
Yeah.
They were not joking about that. They had to deal with this major problem of like the army sucked. The army was terrible and getting steamrolled by the Nazis for years. And it leads to the siege of Leningrad and the siege of Moscow, which they which they're referencing as the second front in this film. We need to open the
there's a lot of that
second
thrown
front.
around.
That means like we need to start fighting the Nazis somewhere else so that they don't keep spending all their resources here and making our life really bad.
Right.
But as they learn, that is the very thing that makes this an important battle. Is they kind of have this scene where they're like, you know, this is
one of the moments that's where the movie or
like
and the director is really is speaking to like, hey guys, quick side here. This is why the Battle of Stalingrad was really important.
It's
by
like
the way.
It is a didactic as hell. But yes, the Battle of Stalingrad was a locus, and it just ate resources and you know, manpower for months and months and months, and made it so that they couldn't be very effective elsewhere.
The Nazis were taking resources out of Africa and out of like Western Europe to like funnel
to fight
them into
in this
the
very battle. And they do. The film also goes into some of this idea of like Nazi psychology. You know, they're like, the Mad Fuhrer has announced to the world that he conquered the city, but we know he actually hasn't. And so he's going to try really hard to do it. And that, you know, is just propaganda,
again, that's just
but it's also
that...
like, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, we're explaining the ideas of somebody who, you know, lost this battle. So we just get to put words in their mouth no matter what, because they don't, if they say otherwise, we'll kill them.
I'm just trying to find if I have any other material. Sorry, Tucker, Abram, do you guys have any thoughts? Any other thoughts regarding this film?
No, I think I pretty much exhausted what I had.
Oh, okay.
Fuck, like what? No, but I mean, I think it's an interesting point of how little I was able to take away from this movie. I try my best to go into these Palme d'Or winning World War II movies with an open enough mind. We've watched a lot of them, and I won't lie and say that I don't like get a little bit of an eye roll, like, oh boy, here we go again. Whenever we spin one of these, I'm like, oh Jesus Christ! But I think part of the reason why I find this one of the weakest is something I started with, but is that it is very different from the other movies that we've watched. It feels culturally different. It feels structurally different. The people that it focuses on are very different from another rebel group or a single family running and worried about bombing and food during the war. So I was interested in it from that angle of like, okay, this is trying to do something different, to tell a different perspective on a war, and I think that it is interestingly bold to center a film like this around the struggles of a commander, and the sort of infighting and showing how distanced they are. Because I think part of the reason why Muravyov is a character I found a little bit inscrutable, but I think this is just sort of baked into who the character is, like role wise, is that he's making these decisions about many people's lives, but he like basically never leaves the room. He never sees a battlefield. He never hears an explosion, or close to, from what we see in the film.
At one point, he even says, we need to move the HQ farther away so that I can think without all these damn explosions going off.
Yeah. And so it makes it feel like, oh man, you know, the guy making all the decisions, he has no idea what it's like. That's a perspective we could very easily take of like the dismissing the plight of the quote unquote plight of the commander. But this movie takes a different approach to that. And I think that that's interesting. But I also don't care about this character. I know so little about him. His few relationships that he has with characters that feel largely interchangeable aren't particularly engaging to me because they feel interchangeable. Because as I mentioned earlier, the cultural element or cultural distance from me to the characters makes them feel a little bit more wooden. And so I'm disappointed that a film this different on a topic that I feel like I have seen covered many times. I'm like, okay, I'm ready for a different angle, but then it just totally passed me by. I was like, man, I really have nothing to grab onto. Like thematically, what is this movie trying to say? That because as Abram I think mentioned very early on, it's like what we usually try to do is explore social themes through this, and we got social context, very little social theme.
We got a lot of socialist themes.
Yeah. But so this movie just conceptually, I'm interested in it, but it just did not land for me. I was so let down by that because I'm like I'm hungry for that other perspective. I'm hungry to add
He's
a new
hungry.
layer to my new layer to my understanding of
Mhm.
of European or / non-American World War II perspectives. And this does that, but I'm not going to be thinking about this movie because I don't. I mean, I'm not going to remember the name Muravyov tomorrow, and I'm certainly not going to remember any of the characters or
You're not going to
any of the
remember
moments because there aren't
Pendeleev?
moments.
Oh, you can't forget Pendeleev.
Pendeleev,
Yeah.
that's the older guy
He's the
that
older
gets.
guy,
Hang
yeah.
on, I'm doing my mental pathways right
This-
here.
the-
He's
these-
the old guy that gets.
This is going to be on the test
job.
at the end of the semester.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, I would fail that test. I would fail that test
no,
if you
yeah.
asked me tomorrow.
Yeah, fair enough.
For me,
Um,
what I'll say is that I'm just glad to be reminded of this era of film history that I adore. Yes, this movie kind of sucks. Yeah, it's fine. But you know what doesn't suck? Like all the movies that Vertov made, except for the ones that he made during the war, and you know all these Khrushchev era Thaw films that are just like so offbeat.
What
and
films?
Thaw? It's the name of the period. It's called the Thaw. Like ice thaws out. You know, they were like frozen during Stalin, and then Khrushchev was like,
Hopefully, we're going to be in the thaw soon.
"No, the fuck we ain't." But just like going back to this book, going back to this things from school, I was like, man, I just really like this period of filmmaking, and I like how it can go from like really really visionary and really crazy different to like the weirdest, most repressed, like approved by the government rubber stamp kind of films ever that you know is just are impossible to have been made in America or in Western Europe. The context by which these films are made creates such unique movies, and you know, I'll I'll accept the stinkers because I then get to revel in the really golden ones. Of which, yeah, The Cranes Are Flying is coming up. Is a World War II movie, maybe one of my favorite movies ever. You know, that movie's amazing.
I did do a quick count, and we have 2 World War II movies left on the Palme d'Or list.
No,
Are
we're gonna miss them so much
gonna
when
miss
we're not removing them. Oh,
We're gonna have to do
And
all 1945 Soviet films, of which there's like 12 or whatever.
sure, okay. Well, pretty short series, honestly. And neither of them are from this first Cannes Film Festival year. We have exhausted the World War II films out of this. There's one that comes out the following year, the second Cannes Film Festival that we have yet to discuss, and then yes, in the 1950s there is the Cranes. The Cranes Are Flying.
The Cranes Are Flying. Yeah.
Are
You know, and
we
it's-
done with 1945, or are there still
No.
more entries?
We have 2 from 1945 left. One we have discussed already. It is Billy Wilder's The Lost Weekend.
Yep.
And then the other, I mean, I won't. You want me to just tell you what it is? I
Mhm.
can.
Yeah, I do.
It's a,
oh,
Because
Nick.
with our luck, we're gonna spin it this week.
yeah. It is John Delanoy's Pastoral Symphony, which looks to be a little bit of like a domestic drama kind of situation.
All right.
Huh. Well, I will say that if I had to pick a different Soviet film from this year, Ivan the Terrible Part 1 by Sergei Eisenstein is
Oh.
not great. It's similarly like super strange and off-putting, but has a lot more plot and character to talk about. So
Oh.
if I could have
wouldn't say-
swapped them, I would have.
Here's the thing. I wouldn't call this movie particularly strange. It could have used a
No.
little strangeness,
No,
to be honest.
It's
with
like
you. Yeah, yeah,
anti-strange.
yeah.
Well, that's what the thing about the
Yeah.
realism is. It's you got to be
Right,
you
yeah.
got to portray the world how it is. But if you portray it how we don't
Get-
like
get
it, we'll
real.
kill you. So portray it how
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
You know, that's how they're up to.
Since we are capping off in the end of an era for the World War II movies out of the first Cannes Film Festival, do you guys remember any of your favorites? I could list them off here for you if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Yes.
So there's The Last Chance, which the only thing I remember about that one is that's the one that ends with everybody up in the mountains and like the skiing Nazis and stuff. You guys remember
Isn't that the one where the guy gets fucking shocked like crazy and dies?
No.
No, that is Men Without Wings
Okay.
from Czechoslovakia.
and that's where they work at the
Other-
airplane factory, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, okay.
The Last Chance is Switzerland,
right.
by the way. But there's Men Without Wings, the one that Tucker just mentioned. There is Dorota Enga, of course, our favorite one to invoke, which is about an espionage, a spy unit in Denmark during Nazi occupation. There is, of course, I think so. I'm pretty sure.
No,
that
I'm just
that's,
like, I don't know. I don't
yeah.
remember.
Rome Open City, the Rossellini sort
Oh,
of
it might have to
realist
be that
film
one.
there.
Yeah, I mean, it's
that's
like not
it's
even
probably
close.
it's probably that, yeah. And then the turning point.
The turning point. Yeah. Let's give this a score, why don't we? And we'll find out
Yeah,
where it
sure.
goes. I've been thinking about what I'm going to give this one all episode long. The Last
All
Chance. Okay, so
episode.
The Last Chance we
Yeah,
just
I don't
said has a
know.
3.5. So I think that's
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
second lowest on our list, actually. Do
I'm
I like this more than The Last Chance? You know what? I'll do this.
I think I do. I think I like it more. I at least like what it makes me think about more.
Yeah,
You
that's the
know,
thing, though.
I like to
that
think
was
about this film, and I like
to-
to be like Soviet military history is cool. I like to think
to
about
put
this.
it. Yeah,
this
to put a
movie.
button on the whole discussion, like we talked a lot about like this in vagaries, and Timo, you gave a lot of historical context for like this era of film or this type of film or broadly what this film was doing, but like you get down into the P's and Q's of this. I was like, it's just not good though.
No,
Yeah,
No.
you know?
no.
Yeah, but it's a hard movie to criticize because it's so
Right.
it's so hard to parse. I mean, like I was just like watching this, and I'm like, I feel like I watched this scene already, and I was thinking of the entire
Yes.
movie.
Yeah.
It's hard to parse in one sense, but another sense is very, very straightforward in what it's
Yeah.
trying to accomplish. And what it's trying to accomplish is just not particularly moving to me.
Right, and here's the thing: is I could in one half of my brain I'm like, oh, it's not that interesting, and the other half I'm like, well, you're just being dismissive of it because it's an entirely different kind of filmmaking. It's coming from an entirely different time period and culture and like type of a sort of approach to making film. And my response to that half of my brain is, I mean, like, I like other early Soviet films. I think some of them are absolute masterpieces. You get fucking. I mean, Eisenstein, as we already invoked, you get some
Strike.
Battleship Potemkin up in this.
Potemkin
up in
and
this
Strike
piece.
are crazy
Well, yeah.
movies.
Yeah, those are amazing movies. I'm
And
just
Man
like,
with a
but I
Movie
think it's
Camera
I
is
think
like-
it's just that this one's just not good.
No, it's-
and Man with the Movie Camera, that is one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't think
yeah.
I don't think domestic audiences loved this one. So, and unfortunately, like, are we ever gonna have the scholarship to know why they freaking submitted this? Like, maybe, but
Probably
but
because
we got to
it
get
was
through our
deemed
own world war,
it-
and then we can open up the archives in Russia to find out, because they're like locked. We couldn't go up over there and do the scholarship ourselves if we wanted to.
Yeah.
I
mean, truly, they probably did this because it like came out the year before this was being held, and everybody else was submitting to World War II movies. So they looked around, and was like, ah, shit, what do we got? What do we got that covers World War II around here?
What do we got? in the
every
can?
single movie they
Wait.
made, literally all of them were during the war. Were they made?
Well,
no.
imagine how bad those are if this is the one they submitted.
Ooh, shudder.
No,
Okay.
but to
Okay.
Timo's point, maybe imagine how good they are because this wasn't in this fucking textbook.
Yeah, it's just like there were other ones. Other
Mm.
Ermler movies are in this textbook that are like from a couple years prior. That
Timo,
have.
have you've seen other movies by this director?
No, the one that if I had to,
No.
to be like Peter Kenez recommends, it would be the film Counterpoint by this director Fridrikh Ermler.
He's all about points, isn't he?
He is, and that movie details the struggle between a factory, like a leader of the factory party unit. So the Communist Party of the factories, like, wants to exceed. He wants to exceed what the quotas are, but that's difficult and causes problems. And so then it's a
I don't see that in. I don't see this. I don't see that in Ermler's filmography here.
on the old Wikipedia.
Counterpoint. I'm looking on Letterboxd. I don't see it. I got. Yeah.
Let's see if it's here. It has a different name sometimes. Oh yeah, it's
Yeah,
called or it's called Counterplan. Sorry, not Counterpoint. Yeah,
I don't see that.
I don't know.
This guy hates points. Then.
Yeah.
What year was it?
19 something,
Tanner,
1930,
is this- how important is
1932.
this?
It's quite earlier.
Oh, okay.
Let's put a score on this movie, huh?
Let's do it.
Okay, fair enough.
I got my number punched in. You guys ready?
Yeah.
2,
Yeah.
1, go.
Hang on, I was too busy looking up his
Fridrikh
filmography.
Ermler.
Do that.
Beep, boop, 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 boop. Okay, we've got a number right down there at the bottom. If you could have guessed, 3.7 will be the number. So we're gonna have to do a little tie here with another film. I don't really remember it all. But the point breakdown is that Tucker gave it a 3.1, Abram gave it a 3.5, Tanner gave it a 3.8, and I gave it a stunning 4.5. And so that
Very
Wow.
stunning. Wow.
You loved it.
I loved it. That's 2 cents worth of hope would also have a 3.7 on our ranking. So any clue what happened in that movie or who directed it? Because I don't.
So this is a Italian film that we discussed, right? Yes.
I remember a guy running around like really
Is
tight
this-
Italian streets. He's like trying to fall.
There's a
He's like trying to get
bus.
a woman to love
Yeah.
him.
Once a young woman gets a man to fall in love with her, he must prove himself financially stable and meet her dowry requirements. Yeah, I remember this one being, if you can believe it, for a 1950s Italian movie, not super respectful of women's rights and autonomy.
Well, it sucks that I'm going to say this now after you said that, but I was going to go 2 cents worth of hope just because
Yeah,
I
same
gave
here.
that one a 4 and I gave this one a 3.5. So I'm just going to
Yeah.
go by what I said in the past.
I think I just didn't really have time for it as like a, sort of a in bad taste Italian sex comedy of the era.
Mm-hmm. I'd probably go Turning Point above, but it's like, man, boy, howdy, am I not going to remember either of these in a year. So
If we want to, I don't think this one's worth throwing over the audience. My vote on this
Probably
is
not.
pretty malleable. So how do we feel? I'll vote wherever we have to vote.
Tucker, did you vote? Did you request a vote?
I'll say this one over 2 cents.
Okay.
Okay, I'll say that too. Let's just reach a common consensus. We're gonna say
Perfect.
we're
Yeah,
gonna put
it's
this one
easy. Yeah,
above.
okay.
and we have
that's
just
fine.
discovered how the Soviet government worked for 75 years.
Also, to close the loop on it, what was distracting me from this very important work on Letterboxd, Timo, that one is called Shame.
Really? Okay. It has this book has some detail about the title and it making not a lot of sense in English and a lot more sense in Russian. So yeah.
Fair enough. All right.
Is it spin wheel time? Is that what time it is?
It is spin wheel time o'clock.
Spin
Yeah,
wheel
we're back
time
to it.
o'clock. Oh,
Back to the best part of the show.
Yeah.
For a long
Right.
time, Tanner was governing. We're doing Oscars movies.
Okay. But you ready? But are you ready?
Yes. Wheel, what's your deal? Give us a movie that makes us squeal. Is it on digital or is it on reel? Wheel, what's your deal?
Ooh, fine tenor today, Tanner. You really did good on that
Thank
singing.
you.
The deal. Wheels deal is number 22. What film
Well, that's
might
going
that
to be somewhere right abouts in the middle. That's going to be... Okay, here we go. Moment of truth. Can we find this one now? This is a...
Ooh.
Let's see what
This is
What
another fun
land-
segment.
what land does this hail from? This is a Polish film. Oh, hang on. I know this
Ooh.
director. I might have a tough time. I might mispronounce his name, but I think it's Andrzej Wada. He's the guy who directed like Ashes and Diamonds and stuff like that. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I don't know
Anyway,
what you're
What's the
talking about.
movie?
Yeah.
the movie is called Man of Iron.
Ma-
So we're
Oh.
sticking in the Soviet
Oh,
bloc.
the
all right?
MCU.
Yes, the MCU.
Nobody wants
We're sticking in.
you.
We're firmly behind that Iron Curtain.
We're gonna go behind the
for
Iron
now.
Curtain. What year is this from?
This is from 1981.
Okay.
So I'll hit you with the,
Brezhnev time period. We got old Leonid in charge.
I'll hit you with the plot description here from Letterboxd.
Okay.
In Warsaw in 1980, the Communist Party sends disgruntled radio reporter Winkel to Gdansk to dig up dirt on the shipyard strikers, particularly on Maciek Tomaszak, an independent labor union leader whose father was killed in the December 1970 protests. Posing as sympathetic, Winkel interviews the people surrounding Tomaszak, including his detained wife, Anjishka.
It sounds like On the Waterfront, but Eastern Bloc. Kind of into it.
I'm kind
I-
of into that as well.
I wish we were watching the 1979 Man of Iron movie, directed by Sun Chung, which is described as a martial arts loose homage to Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo. That sounds better to me. But,
That sounds fucking cool. But no, I know I have seen Ashes and Diamonds, which is a film that came out in the 1950s, and this is a Wajia work from the 1980s.
Okay.
Ashes and Diamonds fucking rules as like a Soviet bloc sort of. I think a World War II movie that one is.
Mhm.
Let me double check that. maybe just like a war movie generally. There was a lot of that happening in the Eastern Europe around the late 50s and 60s.
My little challenge for you, and I don't know anything, so this might not be relevant or not, but count how many times you either laughed or thought you were supposed to laugh but didn't. And we shall see. I often find these like late 70s to end of the Soviet Union, Eastern Bloc movies. Okay, this is Poland, so it's a little different, but I find them to have very they like try to be funny, but are like so culturally different that often I'm like, oh yes, very funny. I'm humorous, see, and I'm like completely dead, and so I just want to collect a little data on this one from you guys.
Okay. Did anyone look into where to watch this one at?
I am on
live.
I'm on a website right now called Eastern European Movies with English Subtitles.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Seems helpful in this situation.
And I don't know. I clicked on English subtitles and brought me to a different page where I can watch movies including Sex Mission.
Oh, hang on a second. Maybe we should review that instead.
What? I didn't know that was an option.
Well, then I'm clicking a button. I'm clicking a button.
Clicking a button.
Subtitles. I'm clicking settings wheel. I'm clicking subtitles. I'm clicking. It didn't work.
Uh-oh.
Wait, it worked. It worked. I found it. Here we go.
Okay.
Oh, I got it too. I found it as well. I found a Blu-ray.
Right.
A Blu-ray download version of it.
Perfect.
There we go.
Perfect.
BRDL.
Boom. Look at that. Okay.
And folks, we're in business.
We are in business. Next week.
We've still yet to find one we can't
continue.
watch. We come close. We've never not been able to watch one so far for the show.
And well, hopefully I remember to put this one that we talked about here in the description of our video because it's on YouTube. You can watch it for free, and the subtitles are okay. They are okay.
You're probably really gonna want to after hearing this review.
This review, yeah.
Just electric, wall-to-wall praise.
You know,
the
turning point.
That's what it is.
Turning point. Alrighty, let's get out of here before any unfortunate things happen to us. Turning Point speakers. Let's talk about Man of Iron next week. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. No. Look at my fingers. Turning Point next week. Stay cool. Keep warm. Peace.
Jackass.
God, Timo.
I was literally about to say, wow, we made an entire episode without making a TPUSA joke, and then you were literally in the middle of it as I was thinking that.